بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات.
Salawat. Dear elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum. The Holy Prophet has said, Husain is from me and I am from Husain. Tonight we commemorate the death of Hazrat Qasim, a young martyr of Karbala. Hazrat Qasim was the youngest son of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and on the day of Ashura he was just 13 years old. He went to his mother for permission to fight for Islam and had it granted. Then he went to Imam Hussein to request his permission. Imam Hussein denied that he goes to the fight. Imam Hussein gave this reason: "My darling Qasim, you are the image of my brother. You remind me of Hassan. I can't allow you to die." Qasim went back to his mother, who reminded him of a ta'weez he had. Inside there was a letter from Imam Hassan to Imam Hussein. The letter read that Imam Hassan wanted Qasim to fight for his behalf. With this, Imam Hussein gave permission to Qasim to go to the battlefield. The dedication that Hazrat Qasim showed on the day of Ashura is breathtaking, considering that the fact that he was just 13 years old. As children, we can learn a lot from the tragedy of Karbala. We should take the great personalities like role models and try our best act in their way in our lives. By Muhammad wa al Muhammad Salawat.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. شبیر تیری غربت کی قسم میں لاش تیری دفنا دیتی. شبیر تیری غربت کی قسم میں لاش تیری دفنا دیتی. کوثر کے تجھے چھینتے دیتی. زمزم سے تجھے نہلا دیتی. شبیر تیری غربت کی قسم میں لاش تیری دفنا دیتی. قاسم کا بدن اکبر کا جگر عباس کے بازو آن کسر. قاسم کا بدن اکبر کا جگر عباس کے بازو آن کسر. اب کچھ بھی نہیں ہے جولی میں، ہوتا تو تیرا صدقہ دیتی۔ شبیر تیری غربت کی قسم، میں لاش تیری دفنا دیتی۔ شبیر یہ دیس پرایا ہے، ورنہ میں تمہاری میت پر۔ شبیر یہ دیس پرایا ہے، ورنہ میں تمہاری میت پر انبار لگاتی کلیوں کے پھولوں کی میں برسا دیتی۔ شبیر تیری غربت کی قسم، میں لاش تیری دفنا دیتی۔ اے بھائی تجھے معلوم تو ہے، رسی سے بندھے تھے ہاتھ میرے۔ اے بھائی تجھے معلوم تو ہے، رسی سے بندھے تھے ہاتھ میرے، ورنہ میں تمہاری میت پر چادر کا کفن پہنا دیتی۔ شبیر تیری غربت کی قسم، میں لاش تیری دفنا دیتی۔ شبیر تیری بے حسن و کفن، میت کو نہ یوں رہنے دیتی۔ شبیر تیری بے حسن و کفن، میت کو نہ یوں رہنے دیتی۔ گر سر پہ میرے چادر ہوتی، میں تجھ کو کفن پہنا دیتی۔ شبیر تیری غربت کی قسم، میں لاش تیری دفنا دیتی۔ شبیر تمہارے بعد ہمیں یوں قید کیا بے جرم و خطا۔ شبیر تمہارے بعد ہمیں یوں قید کیا بے جرم و خطا۔ بازو پہ نشان ہے رسی کے، تم ہوتے تو دکھلا دیتی۔ شبیر تیری غربت کی قسم، میں لاش تیری دفنا دیتی۔ شبیر یہ تم نے اچھا کیا، کعبے سے نکل آئے ورنہ۔ شبیر یہ تم نے اچھا کیا، کعبے سے نکل آئے ورنہ یہ امت خیموں کے بدلے کعبے کو آگ لگا دیتی. شبیر تیری غربت کی قسم میں لاش تیری دفنا دیتی. شبیر تیری غربت کی قسم میں لاش تیری دفنا دیتی. گر سر پہ میرے چادر ہوتی میں تجھ کو کفن پہنا دیتی. شبیر تیری غربت کی قسم میں لاش تیری دفنا دیتی. پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اہل حرم کو کل سے بہن عباس بن کر سنبھالو گی نا. وعدہ کرو اے بہن زینب، اے بہن زینب، احسان مجھ پر اتنا کرو میرے سرہانے بیٹھی رہو. کیا سوچتی ہو مجھ سے کہو، میری وصیت بھی سنتی رہو. تم مجھ کو رو لو میرے سامنے، کل سے یہ آنسو چھپاؤ گی نا. وعدہ کرو اے بہن زینب، اے بہن زینب. جب بے کسی کے ماحول پر شام غریبہ جانے لگے، نانا کی امت جب بہن خیمے ہمارے جلانے لگے، جل جائے مسند میری مگر عابد کو میرے بچاؤ گی نا. بہن زینب، اے بہن زینب، نزدیک میرے آؤ ذرا، دیکھو نہ سن لے سکینہ کہیں. جاؤ گی جب قید خانے میں تم، بچھڑے گی تم تم سے یہ بچی وہی زندان میں تم بندے ہاتھوں سے قبر سکینہ بناؤ گی نا وعدہ کرو وعدہ کرو اے بہن زینب اے بہن زینب بے گور ہوگا میرا بدن خاک شفا ہوگی میرا کفن دیکھو رونا نہیں چین خونا نہیں تم کو مل جائے چادر یہ ہونا نہیں تم اپنی چادر پیاری بہن خاک شفا کو بناؤ گی نا وعدہ کرو وعدہ کرو اے بہن زینب اے بہن زینب و محمد و آل محمد صلوات
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نعرہ تکبیر نعرہ رسالت نعرہ حیدری حسینیت بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید شہید الحسین حسین الغریب الغریب حسین حسین الشہید دہائی دہائی خدا را دہائی یہ دشت بلا میں ہے کیسی تباہی بہایا ہے کس نے یہ خون محمد قیامت یہ دائی ہے کس نے الہی جوان اور بزرگوں کو مارا گیا ہے شہیدوں میں شامل ہے نناس پائی حسین الغریب حسین حسین الشہید حسین حسین الغریب سب مل کے حسین الشہید شہید الحسین اٹھی اپنے مرکز سے بنت محمد سیاہ شب کی چادر میں چہرہ چھپا کر گئی کربلا میں، تو اس نے یہ دیکھا ہے بوسیدہ کرتے میں ایک لاش بے سر، بدن سارا تیروں سے چنی پڑا ہے، لہو میں ہے ڈوبا ہوا سارا پہ کر، حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین، حسین الشہید شہید الحسین، حسین الغریب حسین، حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین۔ تڑپ کر وہ چلائی شبیر بیٹا، لہو میں نہائے ہو سر بھی جدا ہے، تبر کس نے مارا ہے سارے بدن پر، یہ تیروں پہ کس نے جنازہ رکھا ہے، کہا ہے میرا لال عباس بولو، میں پوچھوں گی اس سے یہ کیسے ہوا ہے، حسین الغریب حسین الشہید شہید الحسین، حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین، حسین الشہید۔ صدا سن کے زہرا کی طرح غازی، جدا تن سے سرتا دوشانے کٹے تھے، غم و یاس و حسرت میں مجروح و مضطر، کہا کیا کہ دریا کنارے پڑے تھے سوئے الکمام، جو بی بی نے دیکھا بتاؤ کہ ساحل پہ ٹنڈے پڑے تھے، حسین الغریب الغریب حسین الشہید حسین الغریب الغریب حسین ادھر درد و غم کی ستائی تھی زینب، جو وحشت کی جنگل میں حیدر بنی تھی، خبی خاک اڑاتی خبی اشک پیتی، جو کنبے کے پہرے پہ تنہا کھڑی تھی، سکینہ کی سکا کو آواز دے کر، غم شاہدی میں بکا کر رہی تھی، حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین، حسین الشہید حسین، حسین الغریب الغریب حسین الشہید، بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللهم صل على محمد. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Mu'mineen, we are very honored the Husaini Islamic Center. We have His Excellence, His Eminence Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad al-Baharul Ulum organization named the Mainstay Foundation. The address will be translated by Sayyid Hassan al-Hakim. Sayyid Muhammad al-Baharul Ulum is a professor of advanced intermediate studies, Sutul Ulay, in the Islamic Seminar of Najaf. Alongside his seminar teachings and studies, Sayyid Muhammad al-Baharul Ulum dedicated his time to the academic studies, receiving a master's degree in Sharia and law from the Islamic College of Lebanon. He studied advanced seminars, Baytul Kharij, under the grand contemporary scholars such as Grand Ayatollah Sheikh Wahid al-Khurasani and Sayyid Muhammad Sayyid al-Hakim. Can we please all welcome His Eminence with a loud Nare Salawat.
نعرة رسالة نعرة هيدري بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
اللهم صل على يا الله.
Yes, His Eminence also finished his PhD studies in constitutional law also. So he has a PhD degree.
استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. السلام على الحسين الغريب، السلام على الحسين الشهيد، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم منا جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقينا وبقي الليل والنهار يا أبا عبد الله. شرف لي أن أكون بين الأخوة الأعزاء لنحيي ذكرى أبي عبد الله الحسين. أتيتكم من النجف، من كربلاء، من مدينة الشهادة في أيام الشهادة، وكم سرني أن أجد هذا الأولاد الصغار من الآن يتعلمون ذكر الحسين. لن تموت أمة تعلم أبنائها حب الحسين.
It's a real honor to be amongst you here, coming from the city of Najaf, from the city of Karbala, the city of martyrdom during the days of martyrdom and the days of tragedy. And also I'm really pleased to see the children participation. A nation will never die if they teach their children the love of Hussein.
شيعتنا خلقوا من فاضل طينتنا، يحزنون لحزننا ويفرحون لفرحنا، وقمة الحزن وأكبر الحزن هو حزن الحسين عليه السلام.
Our Shia were created from the best of our clay. They will shed the tears and they will feel sad for our sadness, and they will feel pleased for our pleasure. And the most of the sadness and the sorrows are the sadness and the sorrows of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein.
أئمتنا عليهم السلام أمرونا بإحياء أمرهم، أمرونا بأن نحيي ذكر الحسين. مئات السنين، أكثر من 1000 سنة، 1400 سنة، ونحن نحيي هذه الأمر. أجدادنا، آباؤنا، أجدادكم، آباؤكم وإن شاء الله يبقى هذا الأمر في الأبناء والأحفاد أينما كنا على وجه هذه الأرض.
Our Imams commanded us to revive their matter. They commanded us to revive and commemorate the tragedy of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. It's been hundreds of years, 1,400 years that we were reviving, and we are reviving the commemoration and the remembrance of Imam al-Husayn. Our grandparents and ancestors started that, and we are continuing that, and hopefully inshallah it will continue throughout our progeny, our children and grandchildren.
أئمتنا قالوا أحيوا أمرنا، والإمام سلام الله عليه الإمام الرضا قال أني أحب تلك المجالس. هذه المجالس يحبها أهل البيت. لماذا؟ لأنها تربطنا بالحسين. الحسين إمام مفترض الطاعة قتل مظلوما.
Our Imams commanded us, revive our remembrance, revive our matter. Our beloved Imam Rida alayhi salam, he said, I love these gatherings, Allah. Because these gatherings, the gatherings of remembrance of our beloved Imam al-Husayn.
الإمام الحسين عليه السلام مظلوم، قتل مظلوما، والعالم كله نعى الحسين، ونتفاعل دوما مع مظلومية الحسين. عندما نبكي الحسين ونتأثر بمظلوميته تنفتح أمامنا آفاق من المعرفة والفهم. عندما نعرف ماذا كان الحسين يقول نتعرف على كلمات الحسين، فالبكاء هو بوابة للمعرفة، بوابة للأجر والثواب وللمعرفة أيضا.
Our beloved Imam al-Husayn, he was oppressed. He was killed and murdered with oppression. The whole world is crying for Hussein. When we shed the tears and when we cry and when we weep for Abu Abdullah, we are doing that because the horizons will be open for us. When we cry and we shed the tears for Abu Abdullah, the gate of knowledge will be open for us, because we'll go and seek to understand why, what happened to Abu Abdullah, what Abu Abdullah al-Hussein said to us, what he mentioned during his journey. So the gates of learning and the gates of thawab and rewards and the gates of ajr will be opened when we weep and when we cry for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein.
الإمام الحسين عندما خرج إلى كربلاء من خلال كلامه، من خلال رسائله التي أرسلها إلى محمد بن الحنفية وغيره، ومن خلال بياناته قبل يوم عاشوراء ويوم عاشوراء، طرح شعارات متعددة. في إحداها يقول آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر، في إحداها يقول هيهات من الذلة. هذه كلها شعارات وكلها مبادئ لنا في حياتنا.
Our beloved Imam al-Hussein, he always sent different sermons, he always presented different sermons and sent different messages to different companions throughout his journey. For example, he sent a message to Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah, and he mentioned during his sermons and certain messages, he would say that I will enjoin good and forbid evil, or promote the virtues and forbid the vices. And the other message he would say, no, never for any humiliation, and so on.
آخر شعار للحسين في يوم عاشوراء وفي كلماته الأخيرة مع القوم لإقامة الحجة عليهم قال لهم ويلكم يا شيعة آل سفيان، إن لم يكن لكم دين وكنتم لا تخافون يوم المعاد فكونوا أحرارا في دنياكم وارجعوا إلى أحسابكم إن كنتم عربا كما تزعمون.
In his last message, in the day of Ashura, our beloved Imam al-Hussein, talking to his oppressors, the camp of the enemies of Allah, he told them, woe to you, talking to them, if you don't have any faith or religion, and if you do not fear the day of hereafter, be free in this life.
الحرية إحدى المفاهيم الإنسانية العامة إحدى المفاهيم التي ما زالت إلى يومنا هذا تثير لغط وتثير نقاشات وتثير جدالات متعددة. جدلية الحرية، هل الحرية مطلقة؟ هل الحرية مقيدة؟ أين يكون الإنسان حرا؟ أين يكون الإنسان مقيدا؟
Freedom is a concept and it's a value that's accepted by all humanity and human beings. And it's a concept that is throughout history been discussed and argued. There are different arguments regarding freedom, whether freedom is something that is limited or something that's absolute and unlimited, and where we stand from this.
الإسلام ثبت أساسا أن الإنسان مختار ذو إرادة يحاسب على أفعاله وكلماته. ليس هناك إجبار، ليس هناك إكراه، كل نفس بما كسبت رهين. إن الإنسان على نفسه بصيرة. الإنسان يحدد القرآن مبدأ أساسيا، وهو أن الإنسان كائن عاقل مختار ذو إرادة يحاسب على إرادته ويحاسب على أفعاله وكلماته.
Islam presented a firm concept, a firm belief that a human being is someone that has a free will. He has a will that he decides what to do. And based on that, Islam presented also a punishment and reward system, and he holds a human being accountable for all his actions and for whatever he does. We find in the Quran says, "Kullu nafsin bima kasabat rahina." Every soul, whatever the soul does, is being held accountable for that. It means the Quran also presented us a concept or a belief that we have a free will, so we are responsible and will be held accountable for our actions in the day of hereafter, and the whole reward and punishment system is based on this will that we have, that we decide whatever we need to do.
إذن على الصعيد الاصطلاحي يقال أن هذه الحرية هي الحرية التكوينية، أن الإنسان حر في أساس وجوده واختياره، فليس هو مجبر على أي فعل أو على أي قول. فلذلك هذا العنصر وهو عنصر الاختيار وكونه إنسان ذو إرادة، هذه حقيقة جعلها الله سبحانه وتعالى في كل إنسان.
So when it comes to a terminology, the terminology of the word freedom, what we mean here by freedom is the creational freedom. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created the human being, He gave him the freedom of decision making. He decides what to do, and all his actions are based on his decision. Nothing will force him, and no creational force is upon him when he commits an action. That's why he will be held responsible for all his acts.
عندما نأتي على صعيد السلوك، عندما نأتي على صعيد الأفعال، هناك نحوان من الأفعال. هناك نحوان من الأفعال التي يقوم بها الإنسان. النحو الأول والقسم الأول هي الأفعال القلبية، فلنعنونها الأفعال القلبية: الحب، البغض، الكراهية، الرغبة، الإيمان. هذه هي أفعال قلبية. والنحو الثاني من الأفعال هي الأفعال الخارجية، السلوك الخارجي الذي يقوم به الإنسان.
When it comes to behavior and actions, we divide them into two categories. One is the inner aspect, and the second one is the external aspect. What we mean by the inner aspect is what we feel: love, hate, belief, and so on. These are the inner aspect of the behavior. The outer aspect or the external aspect are actually the actions that we commit, whatever we commit outside ourselves.
على صعيد القلب والاعتقاد لا إكراه في الدين. لا أحد يجبرك أن تحب شخصا، لا أحد يجبرك على الكراهية. أنت ترى في نفسك هناك حب تحب، هناك بغض تبغض، هناك اعتقاد وإيمان تؤمن بهذه العقيدة وتؤمن بهذه العقيدة. العنوان العام في الاعتقاد وفي الأفعال القلبية هي لا إكراه في الدين.
From the first aspect, which is the inner aspect, the feeling aspect, what you feel and what you hold within your heart, these things, we have a general rule, لا إكراه في الدين. There is no force in faith. Meaning, faith will not force you to love something, hate something, and here, between brackets, my addition to explain, when they say it does not force you, means does not force you externally, meaning it will tell you what you must do and must not do. But it will not force you, it means it will not hold you responsible in this world for your feelings. So you can love something, you can hate something, you can believe in something, you can disbelieve in another thing. What you believe in, what you feel, all these are inner things. So لا إكراه في الدين, there is no force when it comes to these things.
لأن الأمور القلبية أمور داخلية، والأمور الداخلية لا يوجد هناك من يسيطر عليها. أنت تتحكم تبغض من وتحب من. أنت تتحكم بماذا تؤمن وبماذا لا تؤمن.
Because the inner aspect, what you hold in your heart, is something that no one can control. No one can know. It's your full control. You control what you like and what you dislike. You control what you love and what you hate. You control what you believe in and what you disbelieve in. So no one can come and control your inner feelings.
لكن هذا لا يعني أن كل ما تعتقده سوف يقبله الله. لا إكراه في الدين، هذا الجزء الأول. الجزء الثاني، قد تبين الرشد من الغي، الحق واضح. فأنت إذا إنسان عاقل يجب عليك اتباع الحق. عدم وجود إكراه لا يعني أن الله سبحانه وتعالى سوف يتقبل منك أي اعتقاد، لأن الحق إذا كان واضحا مقتضى عقلانية الإنسان وفطرة الإنسان هو أن يؤمن بالحق ولا يؤمن بالباطل.
And the Sayyid is continuing and he says, yes, you have the right to like what you like and dislike what you dislike, which is the inner. No one can control that. But that does not mean Allah will accept that. Because if you continue the verse, the other part of the verse, no force and faith, the other part, قَدْ تَبَيْنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ, the truth is clearly distinguished from the falsehood. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, yes, your inner side, no one is forcing you. You have full control. But when the truth is clear and you reject the truth, then Allah will not accept that.
الحب هو فعلك، لكن تيقن أن المرء مع من أحب. جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري يقول: والذي نفسي بيده لقد سمعت حبيبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يقول: من أحب قوما كان معهم.
Yes, you're not forced, but when you love, this inner feeling, this inner aspect of you, when you love, you will be with the person or with the belief that you loved. Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, a companion of the Prophet and the Imams, he narrates, he said, by whom that my soul is in his hand, he's swearing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, I heard my beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he says, whoever loves a people, he will be with them. Meaning he will be resurrected with them in the hereafter.
لذلك الله سبحانه وتعالى لا يجبرك على أن تحب شخصا ما، لكن اعلم من تحب، تخير من تحب، لا تجعل محبتك وقلبك مع كل أحد.
That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not force any feeling upon you. But you must know who you love and where you put your heart, where you direct your heart towards. Because you direct your heart towards the people, Allah will associate you with them and you will be always with them.
لذلك هذه قاعدة يجب أن نجعلها أمامنا. هناك حرية في مقام الحب والبغض والإيمان، لكن عليك أن تعرف ما هو النتيجة المترتبة على أن تحب يزيد أو تحب الحسين.
Yes, so we need to put this ruling before us. Yes, there's a freedom who you love and who you hate, who you like and who you dislike. But you need to also know the consequence. The consequence, it means you will be with that person. You will be associated with that person. You will be counted as that group. So it's different when you love Hussein from if you love, God forbid, Yazid.
رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم كان يشجع الناس لحب الحسين. اللهم إني أحبه أو أحبهما للحسن والحسين فأحب من يحبهما.
The Messenger of Allah, he used to encourage people to love Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. He always used to narrate and used to tell the people, oh Allah, I love them both, Al-Hasan and Hussein. So love whoever loves them both.
لذلك هذا على صعيد الأفعال القلبية. أما الأفعال الخارجية، السلوك الخارجي، العمل، التصرفات، ما يقوم الإنسان به من أعمال، هنا هل هو حر يفعل ما يريد أم لا؟
So this is from the inner aspect, what we feel, our heart aspect. What about external aspect, the actions, the behavior that shows externally? Do we have the full freedom to do whatever we like? And everyone has the all freedom?
هناك نظامان يحكمان سلوك الإنسان. الله سبحانه وتعالى أودع في الإنسان غرائز، أودع في الإنسان رغبات، أودع في الإنسان فطرته على أنها ترغب، يرغب في الأكل، يرغب في الزواج، يرغب في المال، يرغب في النعيم، يرغب بأمور متعددة. هذه تسمى غرائز وشهوات ورغبات الإنسان.
There are two systems within every human being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created us, He put within us our innate. And this innate has also different desires, has different instincts, things that we desire and that we want.
ومع هذه القوة وهي قوة الغرائز وقدرة الغرائز ونظام الغرائز جعل لدينا ضميرا وعقلا.
And from the other aspect, so one part is what the desires and what we want and what we seek. The other aspect, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put within us reasoning and intellect.
الضمير والعقل يدعو الإنسان إلى الاعتدال، إلى العدالة، إلى العقلانية، عدم الإسراف. الغريزة تقول أنا أحب الأكل فالآكل وآكل 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 وآكل. أحب المال، أجمع المال بالحلال بالحرام بأي طريقة كانت. الغريزة والشهوة تدفع الإنسان إلى تلبيتها وتحقيقها بأي طريقة كانت. الضمير والعقل يقول له قف.
The intellect, the reasoning, our the consciousness, it gives us a balance. It stops us where we have to stop. However, the desires, the instincts, they tell us go and go. Eat as much as you want. Collect wealth as much as you want. There are no boundaries because the desires takes you to that direction. It is only the intellect and the reasoning and the conscious that puts the boundary and tells you stop.
الإنسان إما أن يعيش بمفرده وإما أن يعيش ضمن مجتمع وضمن عالم. الإنسان إذا كان يعيش بمفرده فليلبي كل رغباته بأي طريقة كانت، لا يقف أمامه مانع. أما الإنسان الذي يعيش بمجتمع ويعيش مع ناس، حينئذ كل شخص هو عنده غرائز وكل شخص يريد أن يحقق رغباته. الكل يحب المال، يريد أن يجمع المال. الكل يريد أن يشفي هذه الغريزة، أن أكل، الشرب، أي غريزة من الغرائز. فحينئذ إذا قلنا أن هذه كل فرد له حرية في تلبية هذه الغرائز وتحقيق هذه الغرائز لأصبحنا كالحيوانات.
If a human is living alone in this world and no one else except him, no need for any boundaries. He can fulfill his desires the way he likes. There's no boundary is required. However, if a human is living within a society, within a group of other people, if everyone, there's no boundaries on them, if everyone wants to fulfill their desires without any limits or boundaries, what's going to lead to?
إذن الحرية هي فطرة من أجل تحقيق الرغبات والميول التي لدى الإنسان، لكن هناك أربعة أمور هي التي تجعل هذه الحرية تقيدها.
That's why the freedom is actually something that's within our innate. The freedom is a gate to fulfill all of our desires, all of our needs, whatever we lost, whatever we need, whatever we desire. But because we are living in a society, because we are living with others, there are 4 elements that puts a limit on a freedom.
الأمر الأول الضمير والعقل، والإنسان مفطور على أن لا يجعل نفسه بمستوى الحيوانات، وإنما يهتدي بهدى الضمير والعقل.
The first element is the conscious and the intellect, and the fact that in our innate we know that we should not be and we must not be at the level of animals, because our reason and our intellect dictate on us that we cannot be at that level. We need to be on a higher level.
لكن الضمير هو الطرف الضعيف. الضمير قد لا يلتفت إليه الإنسان. أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام يقول: كم من عقل أسير لهوى أمير. يعني الهوى والغريزة هي المسيطرة على الإنسان. ضميره دعه، اركنه، لا يلتفت إليه. الغريزة تدفع الإنسان، الشهوة، الميل، حب الجاه، المال، السلطة، نساء، رجال، أي شيء كان. هذا الحب والغريزة والشهوة تدفع الإنسان لتلبيتها، يصبح الشهوة هي المسيطرة على الإنسان، والعقل يصبح أسير ومقيد. لذلك أمير المؤمنين يقول: كم من عقل أسير لهوى أمير.
Conscious and intellect alone, they are weak. They cannot be as strong as our desires. Our beloved commander of the faithful, Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib, he says how many intellects that are imprisoned by the desire. That is a commanding desire. Because our desires, our lust, the love of this life, the love of wealth, the love of women, men, power, authority, this comes over, takes over. We always park our conscience, park our intellect, park our reasoning on the side because of these desires. That's why Amir Mu'minin says what? A commanding desire is imprisoning our intellect.
فالبعض لا يجعل عقله وضميره هو المسيطر وهو الأمير، فنأتي إلى القوة الثانية، وهي خارج الإنسان، العادات والتقاليد. في بعض الأحيان العادات والتقاليد تحكم تصرف الإنسان.
So, because we do not give the command to the intellect sometimes, and we do not make him the master, we need other elements. Here we come to the second element, which are the traditions and the culture.
العادات والتقاليد تختلف بين الناس، تختلف بين المجتمعات، تختلف من زمان إلى زمان ومن مكان إلى مكان، ليست منضبطة. فلذلك يمكن الهرب منها، الخروج منها. العادات والتقاليد تفرض طريقة معينة في الحياة، في الاحترام، في المعيشة، في كيفية المعيشة، في كيفية العمل. لكن العادات والتقاليد ليست مبنية على أساس، مبنية على قبول مجتمع من المجتمعات بتصرف معين. مثلا عندما يأتي القادم احتراما له نقف، هذه عادة. مجتمع آخر يرفع القبعة، مجتمع آخر يسلم عليه. هذه عادات. العادات غير منضبطة وغير مؤسسة على أساس عقلي عقلائي.
of course, when we look at traditions, and here the Sayyid means norms, not the narrations of Ahlul Bayt, the norms and the culture. When we look at the norms and the culture, they change from time and from society and from country to country. And they cannot be something that we hold forever, something that will last within time. They keep changing. So they are not controlled and as something that can be set as a rule for us forever. Yes, there are certain nice traditions, nice norms, nice cultures, but they always differ. In some societies, for example, when someone comes in, they stand for him. In the other societies and other times, they might raise their hat. In certain other cultures and norms, they salute him, and so on. So we don't have a general rule that we can apply throughout time or throughout different space and countries.
لذلك ضابطة العادات والتقاليد ليس بالقوة التي تحكم تصرف الإنسان حتى لا يندفع وراء غرائزه. فلذلك كان هناك أمران آخران.
So when we look at this, we cannot say the norms and the cultures are something that will help us always in controlling our desires. They might be able, they are a helping element, but it's not something that absolutely can help us. That's why we needed two more elements to help. Besides, again, the intellect and the reasoning one. Second, our norms and culture. There are two more elements that we require and need.
القانون الوضعي الذي يضعه الإنسان والدين.
The law that is created by mankind, the mankind law that we put to organize our affairs. And the fourth or the second aspect is the religion, the faith.
القانون يقيد حركة الإنسان، يقيد حرية الإنسان. يأتي شخص ويقول عمره 7 سنوات، القانون يقول يجب أن تدخل مدرسة، التعليم إلزامي. يقول لا، ما أدخل مدرسة، لا أريد أن أدخل مدرسة. أليست هي حرية؟ لا أدخل مدرسة. القانون يقول لا، يجب أن تدخل. لماذا؟ لأن لو لم تدخل أنت سوف يكون هناك جهل، سوف تكون هناك أمية. فالقانون يجبر، يقول هنا ليس لك حرية أن لا تدخل، لا تدرس، يجب أن تتعلم.
The law, what is legislated by mankind, it will limit the movement of the human beings. For example, a 7-year-old child, the law will say you must enter school. The child might say, I'm free. I have my full freedom. Why are you limiting my freedom? I don't want to go to school. But the law here says, no, you must enter the school. You must join a school. Because if you don't join a school, you do not enter a school, there will be ignorance, and in the future there will be consequences as a result of this ignorance. So the law here forces us and limits us towards a certain direction.
وكذلك نظام المرور. إذا الإنسان حر يقود سيارته كيف يشاء، هل له حرية؟ جاء نظام المرور يقيده، هنا لا تقف، تحرك بهذا الشكل، تحرك بهذا الطريق، السرعة محدودة، كذا وكذا. قوانين لا بد منها، لأنك إذا جعلت حرية السياقة بشكل مطلق سوف تؤدي إلى أضرار جسيمة.
For example, another example, the traffic law. The traffic law also dictates a certain way how we drive. Someone might come and say, I will drive whatever way I like. I can drive in whatever direction I like. But the traffic law gives us a system. It tells us to drive, to take this road versus the other road. It tells us to stop at a certain sign. It tells us to speed to a certain limit. Because without that, it will be chaos.
لذلك حتى في القانون لا توجد هناك حرية مطلقة، لا بد أن تكون مقيدة.
So even in law that is regulated by mankind, there's no absolute freedom. It's always a limited freedom.
الدين أيضا بعد الاعتقاد والإيمان بالله توجد هناك أحكام شرعية، وتوجد هناك قواعد في التعامل، في العبادات، في المعاملات، في كيفية التصرف. توجد هناك علاقات الشارع، الدين جعل لها أحكام شرعية.
So faith also regulated certain rules, certain acts of worship, certain way of transaction, It gives certain legislation, how we interact with each other, about the relationships between each other, and so on. So it did not give absolute freedom.
ما هو الفرق بين القانون والدين؟
What is the difference between law and faith?
ما هو الفرق بين القانون والأحكام الشرعية؟
What is the difference between the law and the شرعي laws, Islamic laws? In other words.
لأنه الدين جزئين، قسم من الاعتقاد، الإيمان بالله، الإيمان بالمعاد، الإيمان بيوم الآخرة، والقسم الآخر هو الأحكام الشرعية والمعاملات وكيفية تعامل الإنسان مع الإنسان.
Because faith is of two aspects. One aspect is the belief aspect. We believe in Allah, we believe in the hereafter, and so on, in the prophethood, and imama, and so on. The other aspect is the legislative aspect. This is what comes with the acts of worship, transactions, what's called ahkam al-shar'iyya, which is the shar'i laws.
القانون كتبه عقلاء الناس حسب ما يرتؤونه ويعرفونه من مصالح. القانون عبارة عن قوانين جلس في كل دولة عقلاء هؤلاء القوم وكتبوا قانون طبقا لما يفهمونه من مصالح ومفاسد لهذا المجتمع.
The man-made law is created by the intellectuals of each society based on what they understand of the interests of that society, based on of the personal and the societal interests of the society. So each country, their intellectuals, their people, they gather and they decide certain laws based on what they believe that's their interests.
أما الأحكام الشرعية أحكام جعلها الله سبحانه وتعالى لكي يحقق السعادة للإنسان في الدنيا والآخرة.
However, the religious laws or the religious rules and regulations are certain rules and regulations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has dictated on us based on what's good and what's beneficial for us in this life and the hereafter both together.
لذلك هذا فرق مهم جدا. القانون قد يحقق لي السعادة لكنها سعادة في هذه الدنيا فقط.
That's why this is a very important point that we need to distinguish, that the man-made law will create happiness for us. It is good for us. However, that happiness is limited to this life and the worldly life.
أما الأحكام الدينية تحقق لي السعادة هنا وهناك، لأن الآخرة هناك حياة في الآخرة، حياتنا الدنيا وحياة في الآخرة. نحن نعمل في الدنيا لأجل هذه الدنيا ولأجل الآخرة.
However, the religious rules and regulations are something that are created for our happiness in this life and our happiness in the hereafter, because we know that in this life we are in a journey to work to build for our hereafter.
لذلك الأحكام الدينية هي أحكام جعلها الله سبحانه وتعالى لصالح الإنسان في دنياه وآخرته. ولذلك عندما نقوم بعمل ونقوم بتطبيق أحكام الله فلنطمئن أن هذه الأحكام الشرعية الله سبحانه وتعالى أراد بها صالحنا، الله سبحانه وتعالى أراد بها منفعتنا. لكن في بعض الأحيان قد المنفعة ما تظهر الآن، تظهر في الآخرة، تظهر بعدين. صالح عموم الناس، نوع الإنسان، الأحكام الشرعية هي في صالح نوع الإنسان في الدنيا والآخرة.
That's why we need to rest assured that the faith, with all the regulations and the rules that is put for us from the faith, is something that is for our own benefit, is something for our everlasting life, is something for the hereafter, is for our pleasure in this life and the hereafter, but specifically for the hereafter. So it's something that will lead us to that direction. It's not limited for our pleasure in this life. It's not limited to fulfill our desires in this life.
لذلك الحرية هي حاجة فطرية، لكن امتدادها إطلاقها ليس فطريا، وإنما هو مقيد، وهذا أمر يقره العقلاء ويقره الدين.
That's why freedom, although it's an innate thing, something our innate dictates, but its absoluteness, its limitlessness is not something that our innate dictates. It's a limited freedom that our intellect will dictate, and all the intellectuals accept that there is no absolute freedom.
الله سبحانه وتعالى ركز على حرية الإنسان التكوينية، أن الإنسان ليس بمجبر، وركز على كرامة الإنسان. ولقد كرمنا بني آدم.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs us and emphasizes that from the creational aspect, the mankind were created free with a free will, and on the dignity of the human being, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave the dignity and the karama to the human beings.
قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: ولقد كرمنا بني آدم وحملناهم في البر والبحر ورزقناهم من الطيبات وفضلناهم على كثير ممن خلقنا تفضيلا. أخيرا أختم بهذه الكلمة.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here, and I'm paraphrasing the verse, He says in the Quran that we have given the dignity, and we have given, when we honor the human beings, and we give him the responsibility, and we held him and protected him in the bar, on the earth and on the sea, and we also blessed him with a lot of the blessings.
الإمام الحسين عندما قال إلى شيعة أبي آل سفيان: إن لم يكن لكم دين لا تخافون المعاد فكونوا أحرارا، ارجعوا إلى عاداتكم العربية إن كنتم عربا كما تزعمون. هل من العادات العربية القتل، قتل الأطفال، قتل النساء؟ هل من عادات العرب قتل ابن رسول الله؟
In conclusion, we go back to what our beloved Imam Hussein said, as we started with, telling the camp of the enemies of Allah, if you don't have faith, if you do not believe in the hereafter, be free. Go back to your traditions, your Arab traditions. If you claim that you are Arabs, is it part of your traditions that you kill children and murder the children? Is it part of your tradition that you murder and kill the women?
أبرز مثال على حرية الاختيار قضية الحر. الحر بن يزيد الرياحي، الحر من أشجع العرب، وقف في كربلاء يريد أن يتخذ قرار، يريد أن يتخذ قراره النهائي. سأله المهاجر ابن أوس، كان الحر مطرق يفكر، الحر كان من جماعة يزيد، جاء مع الحسين مع جيشه إلى أن وصل إلى كربلاء. عندما وجد هذا الجيوش، هذا العدد أمام الحسين بن علي، وقف مطرقا يفكر. المهاجر ابن أوس من طرف جماعة ابن زياد قال له: والله لو قيل لي من أشجع أهل الكوفة لما عدوتك، فما هذا الذي أراه منك.
The best example of freedom is Al-Hur. Al-Hur, who had a troop of Yazid, and he was leading person and a commander in the army of Yazid. On the day of Ashura, he's looking down with doubts, with fear, and his person what is his company, his name is Al-Muhajir ibn Aus. He tells him, by Allah, if someone asks me about the most courageous and the heroes of people of Kufa, I would put you amongst them. Why is it that I see hesitation in you? Why is it that I see fear in you?
الحر ماذا جاوبهم؟ قال إني أخير نفسي بين الجنة والنار.
What did Hur answer? He said, I'm putting myself to choose between the heaven and the hellfire.
وقال وهو ينظر إلى معسكر الحسين.
And he said while he's looking at the camp of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein,
والله لا أختار على الجنة شيئا ولو أحرقت.
By Allah, I will never choose over heaven anything, even if I was burned.
هذه الحرية الحقيقية، حرية الاختيار.
This is the true freedom.
أن يعرف الإنسان ماذا يختار.
The freedom of
وهذه
decision.
رسالة الحر لنا جميعا.
This is the message of Hur.
قد
To know
نقف في
what should
مواضع،
we decide.
قد نقف في أماكن يجب أن نختار.
We might stand in certain areas and certain positions that we must decide.
وليكن اختيارنا دوما مع علي وأبناء علي.
And let's decide always to be with Ali and the children of Ali.
السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين، لعن الله قاتل الحسين عليه السلام.
We apologize from respected Sheikh Shabbar for taking his time. And inshallah, he will reduce his time a bit. Jazakallah khair.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. صل على. Mu'mineen, can I please humbly request you to be kind enough to move forward before the majlis commences? جزاكم الله الخير. Mu'mineen, Ayyam Azha budget. Our Ayyam Azha budget for this year is approximately £32,000. This covers the first Ashra Muharram, Arba'een and Fatimiyah. It also extends to the other masjid and programs taken during Muharram and Safar. The donations towards this budget will cover the additional costs running during the operational hours, i.e. we have a minimum of 3 programs a day during the first Ashra. Honorarium and the visiting Maulanas and Mulyanis and associated travel cost, cleaning as required, various niyaz including Hazrat Abbas and Ashura niyaz, tea and tabarruk, Sabila Imam Hussain, all costs during Arba'een. Brothers and sisters, these 10 nights are upon us, and there is no better time to donate to the name of your marhumeen in honor of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. We request you to show your generosity and make sure you take part in the supporting in the cause of the mission of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Let us inshallah hit our target in the next 10 days. Mu'mineen, you can forward your generous donations to the Jamaat treasurer, Brother Imtiaz Ali Bimani, and in the ladies section you can forward your generous donations to Sister Nargis Bai Datu. Par Muhammadin wa Ali Muhammad Salawat. Mu'mineen, today's Ruhani Majlis announcements. Majlis has been sponsored by the family of Marhum Ramzan Ali Muhammad Ali Walji for the Saleh Sawab of Marhum Ramzan Ali Muhammad Ali Walji, Marhum Muhammad Ali Bhai Walji, Marhuma Maryam Bhai Muhammad Ali Walji, Marhuma Shirin Bhai Muhammad Ali Walji, Marhum Ali Bhai Bhimji, Marhuma Kulsum Bhai Bhimji and Kul Marumeens. Next majlis is by Amir Ali Bhai Muhammad Ali Walji for the Saleh Sawab of Marhum Muhammad Ali Bhai Walji, Marhuma Zainab Bhai Muhammad Ali Walji, Marhum Mohsin Bhai Muhammad Ali Walji, Marhuma Qaniz Fatima Muhammad Ali Walji and Kul Marumeens. Next majlis by Bande Khuda for the Bande Khuda's Marumeen and Kul Marumeens. Bande Khuda again for the Saleh Sawab of Maruma Munira by Bimani, Marum Sultan Ali Bhai Wali Muhammad Walji, Marumeens of Hassan Ali Hirji Bamani family, Maruma Salma by Walji and Kul Marumeens. Next majlis is for the Saleh Sawab of Maruma Masuma by Wajid Ali Sadak, Maroom only by Damji, Maroomins of Sadak family, Dosa family, Damji family, Datu family, and Kul Maroomins. Next majlis is for the Isale Sawab of Maroom, Muhammad Taqi by Walji, Maruma Amina by Walji, Ali by Walji family Maroomins, Kazmi family Maroomins, and Kul Maroomins. The next majlis is by Maroom Hussain Ali Muhammad Ali Jesa Damani family for the Isale Sawab of Maroom Hussain Ali Muhammad Ali Jesa Damani, Maroomins of Jesa Damani family, and Kul Maroomins. You are all humbly requested to recite Surah Fatiha for Kul Maroomins. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir-Rahman.
नारे तकबीर, नारे रिसालत, नारे हैदरी। कासिम को करबला में सजाते रहे हुसैन, कासिम को करबला में सजाते रहे हुसैन। इब्ने हसन को दूल्हा बनाते रहे हुसैन, इब्ने हसन को दूल्हा बनाते रहे हुसैन। मेहंदी भी रोई फूटकर सेहरा भी रो दिया, मेहंदी भी रोई फूटकर सेहरा भी रो दिया। दरिया भी आंसू के बहाते रहे हुसैन, दरिया भी आंसू के बहाते रहे हुसैन। कासिम उतर कर सिंध से तकसीम हो गया, कासिम उतर कर सिंध से तकसीम हो गया। फरवा का लाल कलबरा में पामाल हो गया। सलवात।
حسينيات بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
آوازه بلند صلوات.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المذلومين المنتخبين المنتجبين الذين كلامهم نور وأمرهم رشد ووصيتهم التقوى وفعلهم الخير وعادتهم الإحسان وسجيتهم الكرم لا سيما على الحسين المظلوم المقتول المجروح العطشان المذبوح من القفا في يوم عاشوراء في أرض كربلاء بلا جرم ولا خطأ الذي غسله دمه وكفنه رمال كربلاء مقطع الأعضاء مسلوب الحمامة والرداء يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فرحين بما آتاهم الله من فضله صدق الله العلي العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in several verses of the Holy Quran speaks about the concept of happiness. Whether Allah Azza wa Jalla is speaking about the mu'mineen and their happiness, or the happiness that the kuffar and the disbelievers are indulged in whilst in this dunya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes uses the word farah to refer to happiness in Arabic, or the word surur. And happiness is such a concept that whether you ask a person that believes in God, or a person that has no faith in a creator, no faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, neither is he Muslim nor is he a follower of any of the divine Abrahamic religions. If you were to ask that person what do they wish in their life, they would say, I desire happiness. Whether you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not, part of the fitrah of the human being was a desire to be happy. And so I wish to very quickly look at some of the ideas that we are told in regards to happiness in Islam. For this was an issue, this was a concept that not only was discussed by the scholars of the Imami sect, but was also discussed, for example, by philosophers, Muslim and non-Muslim, in regards to what the reality of happiness was and how a person can gain happiness in their life. And without a doubt, if we were to look at all of those angles, happiness from a non-Muslim perspective, from a Western perspective, happiness from the eyes of a philosopher that is Muslim, happiness from the eyes of Ahadith and Quran, the discussion is very lengthy. And so our discussion today solely focuses around the concept of happiness, specifically from Quran and Hadith, happiness in Islam. The first question that I have about this topic and about this concept is, I said that Quranul Kareem sometimes uses the word farah, sometimes it uses the word surur. Here in the verse that I have quoted, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about shuhada and the status they are given, for they have been killed by people protecting their religion. They have been killed whilst, for example, protecting Sayyid al-Shuhada. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they will have farah in the next world. Happiness in regards to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gifted them with. And so what was the difference between these two terms, farah and surur? We were told that sometimes they are used with the same meaning. Sometimes that which farah is referring to is that which surur is being referred to. However, sometimes they have slightly different understandings. For sometimes I gain happiness from something which is to my benefit, which benefits me as a human being. Sometimes I gain happiness from something, but it is something which harms me. For example, a person is diabetic, severely diabetic. They may gain happiness from eating that which is sweet, but this is a type of happiness that gives them harm, not a type of happiness that gives them benefit. Surur in the Arabic language, especially when Quran al-Kareem used it, often was used specifically for that happiness which gives me benefit. Whereas farah refers to both types of happiness. Those that come with naf' and benefit for the human being, and those that come with harm for the human being. Also, we were taught, there are certain types of happiness that I need to struggle for. It's only when I struggle do I gain this happiness. A person, for example, entered 3 or 4 years in university, they struggled until they graduated. On the day of graduation, you are happy. But this is a type of happiness that you had to struggle for. This in Arabic was called surur. But there was another type of happiness that you gained without needing to do anything yourself. It was raining and I was happy. The sun was shining and I was happy. Did I put any effort into that? Of course not. That type of happiness, which comes without me having to struggle, in Arabic was called farah, which is why Allah in the verse, when He refers to the maqam and the state of shuhada in the next world, doesn't say they have surur, that their happiness comes in the next world because they are struggling. He says farihin. Their happiness comes without any struggle, for now their struggle is over in the next world. So Quran al-Kareem uses these two terms. If that has been understood, the second question that arises is, what is Islam's take on happiness? Today, even someone who believes in the religion of Islam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let alone someone from the outside of the religion, will often think that Islam as a religion, or any other religion for that matter, is something which is against the human being happy. Often when you think about religion, straight away to your mind doesn't come the concept of happiness. Whereas when you look at the traditions of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam, they speak about the importance of happiness in the life of a Muslim or a Muslimah. For example, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salatu wassalam has in a narration where he says the human being should strive to make his or her day into 4 different parts. One part of their day is gaining their rizq. One part of your day is doing ibadah and munajat with your Lord. One part of your day is meeting with your family and your friends, but he says those that remind you of your faults, i.e. meeting with people that take you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says the 4th part of your day is for you to enjoy the halal pleasures that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed for you. Happiness is said to be something that you should keep for your day. The halal pleasures that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept for you in this world bring for you happiness. Likewise, the narrations say that the mu'min, when they are taken out of their grave, during the time of resurrection, there is a type of figure with that mu'min, a shadow. And this shadow is accompanying that mu'min as it goes, the mu'min, to the day of Qiyamah. Resurrection, you come out from the grave once again. As you are about to go through and see the stages of Qiyamah and the questioning, there is this shadow figure with you. And the narrations say that this shadow figure, whenever that mu'min or mu'minah suddenly is scared as to what is happening, I don't know what's going to happen to me on the day of Qiyamah, or suddenly in a state of grief, that shadow figure gives you comfort, gives you ease. It will be okay. You're a mu'min, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shall take care of you. And so the Imam was asked, what is that shadow figure that will give us ease when we are taken out of our graves? The response comes, that shadow figure that gives you happiness on the day of Qiyamah is the happiness that you entered into the heart of another mu'min in this world. Islam and happiness is something that we find often. Your day should have some type of happiness. It's very recommended that you make others around you happy. Or how many, for example, of you have heard the narration when it comes to Shahr Ramadan that the believer, when he opens his fast, has 2 sources of happiness. One is the food that they eat. I'm happy to open my fast after a long day. The second happiness is the happiness I shall gain when meeting my Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For when a person fasts and breaks their fast, it's as if they are witnessing and seeing their Lord with the eyes of their heart. So we find that Islam mentioned happiness on different occasions and encouraged the happy life. But from that comes a third question. If you're saying, I'm meant to be happy in this world, religion doesn't want me to be sorrowful and in grief, someone may say, then why is it that so many laws have been placed in my life? Often a non-Muslim, an atheist, a disbeliever, when they look from the outside into Islam or any other religion, they say this system of law that you have naturally makes a person sorrowful. I can't be happy when every single day in my life I have to do this and I can't look at this and I can't listen to this and where is my money coming from and what am I eating and I need to wake up in the middle of the night and pray Salatul Fajr. Where is happiness in that Salatul Fajr that I pray? So if I have just said Islam encourages happiness and wants you to be happy, why then am I restricted from law in every single part of my life? And the answer that was given in this regard is many of you here have children and you will have young children. Do you want anything but your child to be happy? You want your child to be happy. However, your child who's 3 years of age, what makes that child happy? To have the most amount of sugar it can in the day. To spend as much as it can, for example, on the tablet, watching videos. You want your child to be happy, but what do you do to the child? You realize that that happiness for the child isn't beneficial for the child. And so don't you restrict your child? They should sleep at this time. They should wake up at this time. Your child has certain things that they wish to eat. Don't you restrict what they eat? They have to eat this and they have to stay away from this. You wish happiness of your child, but you realize that that child doesn't realize what is good for it. The same thing comes with Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me and you to be happy. But that system of law is there so that the happiness I gain is the right type of happiness, is the happiness that takes me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If these three discussions have been understood, the fourth then question that arises is when we discuss happiness from an Islamic perspective, what types of happiness exist? Here, as I said, the philosophers, the scholars, they had lengthy discussions into the different types of happiness in my life. Sometimes I gain happiness from pleasure. I drink something, I'm thirsty, I drink something that I desire. This gives me a type of happiness. Sometimes I gain happiness from satisfaction. There were a number of categories that were given, but one categorization that helps us to understand all of the different types of happiness in my life is that sometimes the human being gains happiness from input, sometimes they gain happiness from output. What do I mean? I ate something. This is input. This gave me happiness. I drank something. I saw something. I listened to something pleasurable. This is an example of when happiness comes from input. The other type of happiness comes from not me taking something, absorbing something. No. Rather, it's me physically giving something. Like what? A person came to the majlis of Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salatu wassalam and gave, for example, a donation for the majlis. They're physically giving something. This makes them happy. I fed one of my friends. I took them out to dinner. This is an input. That output, me physically doing something, gives for me happiness. And so the happiness of this world is of these two types. However, we have a third type of happiness, which we find mentioned in ahadith. Why? For the happiness that I have just mentioned, whether it comes from input or output, without a doubt is a temporary type of happiness. Whereas Islam talks about another type of happiness that is also the greater happiness and surur in my life, which is the happiness that comes in the next world. Meaning what? Meaning now when I speak about the concept of happiness in Islam, someone may think that means I should always be happy in the dunya. No. Islam understood that happiness comes in the dunya. It's a good thing for you to be happy here, but that happiness will never remain. For coupled with that happiness, you will find sorrow and grief whether you like it or not. I'll give you an example. All of you have heard of Dhul Qarnayn, who Quran al-Kareem mentions. Dhul Qarnayn wasn't a prophet of God, but he was a servant close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dhul Qarnayn has a number of journeys that take place in his life. Quran al-Kareem mentions 3 of them. To the most eastern part of the earth, to the most western part of the earth, and then somewhere towards the east. In each of these journeys, something else takes place. You can read in the books of history the journeys of Dhul Qarnayn. On one occasion, some of the narrations mentioned in one of these journeys, Dhul Qarnayn has thousands of soldiers with him. And as they're traveling, in the middle of nowhere, they find a person in sujood and prostration. Now imagine this mosque is empty, and I'm in sajda here and one person comes in. What's my natural instinct? I'm not praying salah, I'm doing a mustahab sajda of thanks. One person comes in, the natural instinct of the human being is to raise their head and see who is it. Likewise, if I'm doing sajda, the whole masjid is empty, all of a sudden 50 people turn up at once. Would I not lift my head and see who are these 50 people? Dhul Qarnayn says, this person, his head is in sajda. When thousands of us on our horses pass by, his head remains in sujood. So I wanted to see what type of person is this that he's so engrossed in prostration of his Lord in sajda that he doesn't even lift his head. So I got off my horse and I called out to him. I said, Ya Abdullah, O servant of God, raise your head. So he raises his head, he looks at me. He says, why didn't you bother to see what is going on? He said, because I'm prostrating to my Lord. So when Dhul Qarnayn saw that this is the amount of love that this person has for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Dhul Qarnayn says, I wish for you to accompany me on my journeys. Wherever you go, you come with me. So this person says, I'll come with you if you have the following things. I've got conditions. He says, number 1, if you have youth that never turns into old age, health that never turns into sickness, happiness that never turns into grief, I'll come with you. Dhul Qarnayn says, how can I bring you any of these things? The Abid says, then leave me with the one that can give me all of those things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes for you to have happiness that will never have grief. But he says, the world isn't worthy for me to give you that happiness. And so when we look at the types of happiness, yes, we have happiness of the dunya. As I said, from input and output. But the true happiness is that from the akhirah. The final question that I have, which is the main discussion, is how then can I gain true happiness? What is the way that me and you can be happy in our lives? Not happiness of the akhirah. That we will get later. That will we get when we go into the next world. In this world, what was the secret that I was told that would allow me to gain happiness no matter what my situation is? And here we understand that when 2 factors come together, the human being will be happy no matter what. No matter where they live, what their circumstances are, in the dunya they shall be happy. The first that the narrations speak about is if a person has satisfaction. A person who's satisfied with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him or her will always be happy. Whether they're given a lot or little, they'll be happy. They thank their Lord. This is the first key to happiness. The second that we were told is that happiness in essence follows certain things. So think about it in your life. When do you become happy and when do you become sorrowful? Happiness follows a person's desire and a person's goal. If I reach my desire from a certain action, or I get closer to that desire, happiness. Likewise, if I reach a certain goal that I have, or I get closer to a goal, this also leads to happiness. Let me give you an example. A person, his goal is to reach a certain level in his career. He left, for example, Peterborough, and he went to another country. His family aren't there. His friends aren't there. Those that he knew aren't there. It's a completely new environment. But that person, if he reaches that level that he wished to reach, ask him, are you happy? They'll say yes. Why? Your family aren't with you. Your parents are back here. Your friends that you knew for 20 years in your life aren't here. Why are you happy? Because that which I desire, I am getting close to, I have reached. Likewise, there is a mother who has just given birth to her child. Take her child away from her and place her in the best of palaces. Will she be happy? Of course not. Give back her child to her and place her in the smallest hut that you can find in this world. But she'll be happy. Why? Because happiness is in relation to a person's desire and a person's goal. If that has been understood, every goal and desire falls short. Every goal and desire in this world gives you happiness, but not ultimate happiness. Depending on the goals that I have, sometimes think about it. You will have, for example, a marji. He lives in Najaf al-Ashraf wa Qom. They have poverty. They have difficult living standards, but they're happy. Why? Because, for example, their goal is to serve the religion. Worldly goals will give me happiness. But if I've understood that desire and goal are that which happiness follows, the greater the goal and the desire, the greater the happiness. And so what is greater desire and what is a greater goal than proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If that is my goal in my life, and my desire is not the creation, it is nothing but the creator, in this world also, I'll be given the highest level of happiness. And I'll give you an example. Narrations say that no king has been given a kingdom like Sulaiman alayhi salam. Sulaiman's kingdom, we're told the only king or ruler that will have a kingdom bigger is the kingdom of Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, Ajilillahu ta'ala Farjahu Sharif. He has thousands of horses, thousands of people with him, thousands of property, land. Naturally, he's got so many things, he's never been able to see them properly. There's so much. And we are told in the narrations, and Quran al-Karim also highlights towards this, that Nabi Sulaiman used to love horses. And sometimes he would just wish to see the beauty of the horse, stroke a horse, thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he's got this ni'mah. Whenever he wishes to see everything that he has. So he wishes to stand at the top of his palace and see everything that Allah has given him. Always something happens. He's interrupted, it starts raining, he has to go. Something happens and interrupts this pleasure of his. So Imam al-Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam says on one occasion, Allahumma salli ala. On one occasion, Nabi Sulaiman tells all of his people, no one is to disturb me today. I want to go into the top of my palace and see everything that I have. This gives me happiness. Why? I thank Allah. Not because of pride. I thank Allah that He's given me all of these things. So no one is allowed to enter into that rooftop of where he stays. He goes to the top. He starts looking at the horses that he has, the land that he has. He's looking when someone enters in. He looks at that person, he said, what are you doing here? Who let you in? So the response of that person is, Ya Sulaiman, the Lord of this castle let me in. If someone said that to you, you'd say, I'm the Lord of the castle. The mortgage is in my name. So the Lord let me in. Sulaiman realized, I'm not the owner of this Abba. If I was the owner of this Abba, it would go with me to my death. But as soon as I die, it goes somewhere else and someone else takes it and it goes on someone else's shoulders. The Lord of the house, the Lord of everything that I own, the true owner is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, if the Lord has let you in, who am I to say anything? He says, who are you? He says, Sulaiman, I'm the angel of death. I'm here to take your soul. You know what Sulaiman says? What did I say? When your goal and desire is Allah, you have true happiness in this world. Sulaiman said, I thought today I was going to get happiness by seeing that which I have. Allah wished for today for me to see the true happiness in this world. Allah wished for me to be happy, but happiness by going towards Him and seeing Him. This is the true happiness that a person has. And this is why then, now it all makes sense when you put the puzzle together. This is why then that youth on Karbala would say, oh my uncle, death for me is sweeter than honey. This is the true happiness of a youth who isn't even 14 years of age. True happiness is meeting my Lord, even if my body is cut piece to piece. A poet, he has beautiful lines of poetry where he gives condolences to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam, saying, Ya Abul Hasan, sometimes a person is killed by poison. Sometimes a person is killed by the sword. Ya Abul Hasan, we give condolences to you, for your children were killed by both. One was killed by poison, the other was killed by the sword. He says, Ya ayyuhan naba'ul azim ilayka fi ibnayk مني أعظم الأنباء ذا قاذفا كبد له قطعا وذا في كربلاء مقطع الأعضاء ملقى على حر السعيد بوجهه في فتية بيذ الوجوه وذاعي. He would say خذبوا وما شابوا وكان خذابهم بدم من الأوداج الحناء. He would say there were certain youths in Karbala who had dyed their beards and dyed their hair. Why would you dye your hair when you are young? He would say, but their hair wasn't dyed by any dye. Their hairs were dyed by their own blood. ومغسلين بلا مياه لهم سوى عبرات ثكلى حرتي الأحشاء. And there was no water to give them any ghusayl. The only water that they had were the tears of Zainab and Kulthum. A time would come, Hassan al-Mujtaba would be on his deathbed, and Imam al-Hassan has the poison through his body, when suddenly he begins to vomit parts of his own blood. Sayyid al-Shuhada said, I had a bucket in front of my brother Imam al-Hassan, and Imam al-Hassan would give me his last wasiyah, and he would give me a letter and say, oh my brother, open this in your most difficult time. Suddenly al-Hassan says, oh Hussein, hide this bucket of mine. Hussein says, why, oh my brother? He would say, I hear the footsteps of Zainab. and Kulthum, and I do not wish for them to see this blood of mine. I say, Ya Husayn, you didn't want her to see your blood. She saw shimmer on the chest of Aba Abdullah. Hassan gives his last will to Aba Abdullah, and then on the 10th of Muharram, the other martyrs are given permission to go to the battlefield. The son of Hassan says, my uncle wouldn't give me permission. They remember the letter given by Imam al-Hassan. Qasim goes to his mother. She opens the letter. It says, if you find your uncle ghariban wahida, if you find your uncle all alone, sacrifice yourself for your uncle. Qasim comes to Aba Abdullah. He sees the last will and testament. He places the Aba of his brother on the shoulders of Qasim. Qasim goes to his mother. He gives his farewell from the other women. He comes to sit on the horse. Narrations say though that he is so short, his feet do not reach the stirrups of the horse. Hussein picks him up and places him on the horse. He goes towards the battlefield and he begins to fight until a time comes there is something in his shoe. He bends down to fix it, to remove it. Someone comes from behind him, strikes him on his head. He falls on the ground. He calls out, Ya Ayyam, Ya Aba Abdullah. The horses run from right to left. Hussein says, I got to the body of Qasim. I heard him call out his father. I said, Qasim, your father isn't here, it's your uncle. No, Qasim was seeing his father in the next world, ready to quench his thirst. Hussein takes back the body. The body of Qasim is dragging on the ground. I say, Qasim, at first you are so short. Hussein has to help you onto the horse. Now your feet drag on the ground. What has happened? He would say, do you not know when my body fell on the ground, the horses trampled his ribs and trampled his body? For they say in the history of Ahlul Bayt, there are 3 that have their ribs broken. The first was the mother who would say, Subbat alayya Masa'ib law annaha. They said whenever she wished to pray her salah, one hand would be on the wall, the other on her broken ribs. The second is the body and the ribs of Qasim. The third was the body of Aba Abdullah. After everyone had been killed, and I noticed something about all 3 of these, for there was one person who saw Zahra's ribs being crushed and Qasim's ribs being crushed, and saw the ribs of Hussein being crushed, and that is why we call her Ummul Masa'ib. For Zainab has 3, seen all 3. But I say, Ya Aba Abdullah, there was one difference in the way that your ribs were crushed and the ribs of Qasim were crushed. Why? Because Ya Sayyid al-Shuhada, when the horses crushed your ribs, you were no longer alive. But when they crushed the ribs of Qasim, he was still alive. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. يا حسين.
قاسم نوشاد کا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین، پیٹو سر اہل عزا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین. مادر قاسم نے لاش پہ رو کر کہا، آ گئی تم کو قضا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین. جن کا کروں کیا بیان، سال تھا وہ 13واں، ہائے پر ارماں چلا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین. آپ کا باپ کا نور نظر، اماں کا لختے جگر، خود پسند آ گیا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین. اماں سے رخ طلب کیوں نہیں ہوتے ہو سب، اماں سے رخصت طلب کیوں نہیں ہوتے ہو اب. کیا ہوا تم کو بھلا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین. لاشا قاسم پہ جا پیٹ کے سر یوں کہا، کیا ہوئی ہم سے خطا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین. مرنے سے تیرے پسر ہوئیں گے ہم در بدر، گر ہوا ماتم سرا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین. آزم کھل دے بری ہوتے ہیں اب شاہدی، کون ہے جو لے بچا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین. کیا کروں یوسف سے بیاں روتی ہے بیبیاں کیا کرے یوسف بیاں روتی ہے سب بیبیاں لب پہ تھا اے نوجوان لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین قاسم نوشاد کا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین یا حسین
چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات زہرا کا 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 چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات قربان تیری پیاس پہ یہ ساری کائنات قربان تیری پیاس پہ یہ ساری کائنات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات سب مل کے کو ظالموں نے ظلم کیا دے اخیر کی بھی کتنی بازمیر یہ بیٹی شبیر کی ثابت قدم رہی ہے یہ زینب کے ساتھ ثابت قدم رہی ہے یہ زینب کے ساتھ زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات اندھیر کر رہا ہے فضا کا یہ سما خیام اہل بیت سے اٹھتا ہوا دعا بے وارثوں پہ آئی یہ کیسی ستم کی رات بے وارثوں پہ آئی یہ کیسی ستم کی رات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات زہرا کا چاند تشنا مل کے آنکھوں میں پھر رہی ہے وصیت رسول کی فاسق سے ہم کلام ہے بے بطول کی رنج و علم میں ڈوبی ہے زینب کی بات رنج و علم میں ڈوبی ہے زینب کی بات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات وہ ظالموں نے ظلم کیا بے اخیر کی بھی کتنی بازمیر یہ بے شبیر کی ثابت قدم رہی ہے یہ زینب کے ساتھ ثابت قدم رہی ہے یہ زینب کے ساتھ زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات قربان تیری پیاس پہ یہ ساری کائنات قربان تیری پیاس پہ یہ ساری کائنات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات زہرا کا چاند تشنا کھڑا ہے لب فرات یا حسین 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 الفاتحہ
السلام علیکم یا ابا عبداللہ السلام علیکم یا رسول اللہ السلام علیکم یا امیر المؤمنین السلام علیکم یا فاطمة الزہرا السلام علیکم یا خدیجہ الکبریٰ السلام علیکم یا حسن المجتبی السلام علیکم یا ابا عبداللہ الحسین وعلى 9 المعصومين ذريتك علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد وحسن بن علي والحجب بن الحسن أسجد الله فرجه وسهل مخرجه وظهورك السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته اللهم صل
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم قل لوليك الجدد للحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وناردا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك توأا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Mu'minin Salatul Maghribin is approaching. After Salatul Maghribin will be the recitation of Ziyarat Ashura, and then you are humbly requested to return back to Husainiya. Please be seated. The young children will bring tabarruk to you, and you can help yourself with tea. Once you've had your tea, can I humbly request you to be seated? Jazakallah. Bar Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Allah